What's up, guys? Okay, today we're going to be looking at how to make homemade serrations on a knife blade. And we're going to be looking at a couple knives. One, like this Schrade SCHF10, which I've already made the serrations on. And then I've got another kind of El Cheapo knife here that will be, I'll actually be showing you how to put the serrations on it. Now, before we get into that, I want to talk about why you would want to do that. A lot of people think that you're ruining a good knife by putting serrations on the blade, because you can buy any number of knives that already come with serrations or partially serrated blades. But you may have a particular knife like this SCHF10 that doesn't come with the serration option. So if you wanted to have serrations, you're going to have to do it yourself or send it out to have it professionally done. So there are just some styles of knives where the manufacturer doesn't offer serrations. And I'm not a big fan of them. You know, there's two camps as far as, you know, people who like them and people who don't. But again, we're talking about a partially serrated blade. So we're talking about an inch and a half or so of serrations at the base, and you have the rest of the plain edge, which you can still use. So you really are getting the best of both worlds. Now, I don't have a lot of serrated knives, so I've just done it to a couple. It turned out really well. It's really effective. Serrations are great for cutting rope and for even sawing various material. It saws really well. So if it's something that you decide you want to add to a knife and you have the tools to do it, then you know, just continue watching this video, and I'll show you one way to do it. Now, there's a lot of different types of serrations as far as how they do the scallops and everything. Some are very pointy, and that's kind of how serrations work, is by tearing. So you need it to come to a point in some cases, each little tip. But the way I'm doing it, they won't be pointed. And if you decide to try to do it pointed, you're going to risk chipping or bending or having those tips roll over on you, especially if it's not professionally done. In some cases, they can roll over anyways. So the way I do it, there's going to be less chance that that'll happen. Okay, so this is kind of an end result of the serrations that I've done. I chose not to make them really deep. I just took them about as deep as the grind goes on the knife. And it's kind of hard to tell, but they alternate every other one. There's a deeper one and a more shallow serration. So the peaks and valleys are a little bit different, and they alternate. You'll notice on a lot of serrated knives, that's how they do it as well. So we'll start off here by discussing the materials that you're going to need. So obviously you need a knife, a tape measure or a ruler. A ruler would probably be easier. Some sort of marker to mark your measurements on your blade. That's going to be important. We'll talk about that. A Dremel tool, and it's got to have the cutting disc, and then preferably you're going to need the diamond bit, diamond rod, something that can kind of smooth and refine the serrations that you make. In addition to that, there's different sizes of those, but you want something like a serration sharpener, like this Lansky diamond tapered sharpener. That will help a great deal as well. Let me go over here and grab the battery for the Dremel. And we'll get that plugged in and ready to go. I don't want to do a whole lot of Dremmeling because it's kind of annoying to do on camera, but I got to show you how to do this. So basically, we're going to measure the knife. We just start at the base. Depending on how far we go, especially for a shorter blade like this, you're not going to want to go. Let's see, the tape measure wants to turn, so you have to support it. But on a knife like this, you probably want to do maybe 1.25 inches or so. You don't need a full 2 inches, that's half the blade. This is only like a 4.5 inch knife, so maybe 1.25 inches. And you can measure it in centimeters or 1/4 inches. I'll do it sometimes in a 1/2 centimeter increment. And basically when you're done, you're going to end up with something like this. You can see those marks. Now I got a little bit screwed up right here, but I know that like basically right in the middle of those two, that's where it'll go. And it doesn't have to be perfect. The more perfect you get it, the better. And the more accurate as far as your measurements, but definitely mark it out first. Don't just try to start cutting because you'll invariably get way off and it's not going to look right. So let's start out here. And again, I'm just going to go through, notch these out, and you can always skip through the video if you want to cut ahead. Don't want to listen to all the Dremmeling. Okay, so you hopefully can see it. I can't really tell due to my camera how it's picking up, so I'll just kind of do it slow and hopefully you'll catch the angle that allows you to really see how those are marked. So there's a couple ways you can do it here. You can just cut it straight in. I like to angle it a little bit. You can either angle it just to one side or go back and do both sides. And that, you see how it kind of has like a sawtooth look to it a little bit. You can do something like that and it'll kind of change the way the serrations are shaped. You do want to open it up a little bit so that you can get your diamond bit in there. What I'm going to do now, those would be really wide apart serrations. So I'm going to actually go through and eyeball it and cut more serrations in between, but I won't go as deep this time. Okay. So you can see it there. Wipe away some of these filings. Of course, I am wearing safety glasses. Alright, now we want to swap out our bits. And there is talk of wanting to cool the knife because of the friction. You don't want to lose the temper. Based on my experience, it's not getting that hot because you're just doing basically one tiny contact point, and you just go from the next one, so it cools down pretty quick. Especially if you're giving yourself breaks in between, it's not gonna take too long, and it's not gonna heat up in that time. So now we're gonna go through with our diamond bit, and we're just gonna kind of round these out a little bit. You'll see what we do here. So you can see you have to be careful there. The bit wants to jump across the edge of the blade. You can kind of see the progress we've made there. So you really do want to do it on both sides of the knife, because what it's basically doing is it's rounding out those channels, and you want that on both sides. Okay. For now, we're going to skip the step of where you do the same thing to the center serration, the smaller one. You're basically going to do the same thing, just not as deep. Okay, now we're going to take our Lansky diamond taper, and we're just going to go through there and work each one of those. Just like this. If you have a coating or something on your blade, you might want to be careful the way you do this, because it can tarnish the blade a little bit, or at least the coating. Again, the more care you put into this, the better the quality of the job. So we did that side. Go back and do this side. And you can start with the small end, and then if you really want to work it up to the big end, you can do that. But you probably want to start with the small end first. Because that'll help to make the groove. And again, this particular bit, I don't think removes a lot of material, or this sharpener. But it does have diamonds, so it should, to an extent. But you're not going to get the same effect as you would the Dremel tool. But this is a little bit bigger as far as the diameter. So it can do a little more than that Dremel tool in that respect. Okay, so that's kind of what it looks like. The diamond bit magnetizes everything, so you got shavings sticking to everything. And that's our end result. And we can look at the shade. See that? Done a little more sharpening and refining to that one. So we'd probably go back again, possibly with the Dremel. Well, we still have to do it to the smaller ones in the center. And we just want to keep filing that down, because what we're trying to do is we're not really trying to create points, like I said. We're not going for that type of serration. We are just trying to create little channels in there that have kind of a sort of like a concave cutout in them that's sharp itself. And if you can hopefully see that, when you run that diamond bit in there, it's sharpening it down in the, I guess, the valley of the serration, so that once something gets down into each serration, it'll be cut inside there. If you just cut holes, it would tear a little bit, but it needs to be sharp inside each serration so that it can cut as it tears. That's really important. And the fact that you don't have pointed tips, you just have kind of a flat, angled, sort of like a trapezoid shape tip, it's going to hold up better to wear and tear. And it's still going to have a cutting surface across the flat edges of the top of the serration. If you had something like a triangle shaped file, you might be able to go in there and get, perfectly angled triangular type serrations, even though that's not really how professional quality serrations are done. But you could go for points that way. I don't like the pointed serrations because they snag too easily when you're trying to cut with them, and they roll over if you're cutting something hard. So that is basically it for this one. Again, make sure that when you're doing this that you're being careful, because you're dealing with a sharp knife. Wear your safety glasses, and just focus on what you're doing. Make sure you get your measurements correct, and just take your time with each one. Don't rush through it. And if you do it right, you'll get a fairly symmetrical looking and effective serration. So that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Appreciate the views and comments. Make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.